All right, we are recording. How do I minimize myself here? Oh, here we go. I'll just minimize. Okay, hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming to the first of many sex ed webinars. I'm just going to minimize this. All right. I'm super excited to have you here. I'm doing a shame-free sex ed. This is the first of the 8 classes in my 8-week course, called Sensation Shame-Free Sex Ed. I'm Tony Liu. I'm a gynecologist and family physician by training, and now a cartoonist and life coach, love and relationship coach. So I'm really happy to have you here, and thank you for your attention. So really the mission of this program, it's just been in my heart for years, and it's finally, I had the courage to put it together. But I'd always just felt like we as women carry so much shame in our bodies. We're just taught by society that we have to work hard or we have to keep sacrificing for other people. We can't just be ourselves, love all parts of ourselves. We can't have pleasure or joy in our days. And this affects not just our health, but the health of our relationships and everyone we interact with, our careers, all areas of our lives. So my objectives today is just give you some jam-packed info. Today will be focused on a lot of myths and misconceptions that I've seen in the area of love and sex and relationships, and just from my experiences working with patients and also clients with coaching. So hopefully you can take away something that you can start applying even after this half-hour session. So just some questions for you to think about for yourself. You can just mull it over. You don't have to answer me. But what is your current comfort with talking about sex or thinking about sex? And how comfortable are you knowing yourself, who you are, what's important to you, your values, those core values, and asking for what you really want and need from other people? And what is your current relationship status as well? So I was really drawn to this field of work for many reasons. I was always drawn to it looking back, and I'll explain in my story in a bit. But I also was appalled by these statistics. Only 13 states in the US require any form of sex education and to be medically accurate. So I don't know what the other states are teaching, but it sounds like there really are very few regulations. There's not great resources. There's a lot of shame and secrecy regarding it. There's a lot of fear tactics, just saying, don't have sex. It's so bad. Just abstain because there are STDs. Just wait for marriage. So more than ever, I feel like there's a need for this accurate information, safe spaces, and community, so we can just have these really open and honest and vulnerable conversations with each other, especially with the pandemic and how isolated everyone's feeling now too. For me, I feel particularly called to help women because women have our unique struggles. There is still a lot of gender inequality in many countries. I think Europe's got the best. They're very almost equal to men over there. And I'm just speaking for the United States. I apologize, I can look up other countries' informations as well. I will just share some statistics from the US. So for us, pay gap, women are still getting paid only 80 cents to men's whole dollar for equal work and equal time. Women are 2 times more likely than men to suffer depression, and only a small fraction of them ever admit to it, get help, or ask for help or seek treatment. It's shocking that 50% of all pregnancies in the US are unplanned. It's just crazy. We do have access to birth control, but a lot of places healthcare access is limited or education is bad. People don't know that it's an option for them, or they think the side effects are so bad and not worth it. Or there is also that, again, that stigma of asking for any help. And then there are also high rates of sexual assault and domestic violence and rape. That absolutely breaks my heart. And all these, I feel, cause health issues for women, and lots of high rates of women dying from heart attacks, eating disorders, engaging in self-harming behavior such as cutting, and breast cancer. And this is also a very heartbreaking statistic. Every 73 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. And I don't believe this is just women, this is also men and children too, age 12 or older. But that is just horrible. And it makes me want to feel like I want to do my part in whatever way I can think of to help fight this. So for me, I feel like Shame-Free Sex Ed, it talks about sex, but it's really about so much more. Everything in us is interconnected. So in addressing sexuality and trying to liberate us and feeling confident and good about our sexuality and that part of ourselves, it's really going to affect all other areas of our life too. So what would it be like if you could fully fall in love with yourself, just truly accept and embrace every single part of you, even the parts that you don't feel you should have, they're still part of you. And forming that kind of relationship with yourself, when you fully believe in your self-worth and you respect yourself, then you'll know how to trust yourself, your gut, your inner voice, and know and ask for what you want because you truly believe that you're deserving of respect. A lot of times we subconsciously can sabotage ourselves because we don't think we're worth it. And I'm really here, my mission is to help people feel that they are worth it. So quick intro to me, I'm Tony, as I mentioned, and I have multiple missions. I'm a cartoonist, that's been my childhood calling, but I also am a healer. I ended up becoming a doctor, not quite by my choice. I came from a very traditional, pretty tiger parenty family, and they were both doctors, and they were like, you have to be a doctor. There's no other path. You can be an artist and starve on the streets in a box, and we won't help you. We'll just shun you. And so growing up, I really felt their love was conditional on me getting certain grades or being a good kid. And so I was really afraid to step outside any boxes for almost my whole life. I'm now 33, and I really only started living true to myself a few years ago. So I did everything I was supposed to. I went to an Ivy League school. I made them proud. I was salutatorian, like all these things, but I was dying inside. I was had such low self-esteem. I said yes to everybody else except myself. I denied and suppressed myself and my voice. I didn't even know what I wanted from life because no one ever asked me, and I never asked myself either. And when I moved from age 3 from China to America, that was also a stressful transition because I changed caregivers. And so this led to me having some not so great habits. I found myself in abusive relationships and struggling with addictions and eating disorders and really bad body image. As you can see, I was a pretty fat kid for a lot of my life, and this was me in middle school, and I was always looking at these magazines and media and saying, this is how you should be. And I was always criticized for not being girly enough or not being pretty enough or whatever enough. Just never felt like enough. And I think a lot of things shaped my views on love and sex, not in a great way. It led me to a place where I was so afraid and thought so little of myself that I just said yes to the first person who liked me, who ended up being a pretty neglectful, abusive partner. But one day I had my spiritual awakening, I would say. I now look back and see that there were so many events that led to that moment, and it could have been a gradual awakening as well to really my dream of helping women and my passion for helping them. When I was 17, I had my first pregnancy scare from my poor sex education. I went to just a regular, pretty good public school in New York, I would say, but I didn't know that you couldn't get pregnant from sharing a bath with someone. And I had with my boyfriend at the time. And so that was really, really scary for me because I felt so alone and isolated. Like I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone because everyone would just assume the worst of me. And especially not even my friends either, let alone my family. And that led to me really just seeking support and community in other people. And it really wasn't until my senior year of college that I found something called the FemSex, Female Sexuality Workshop, that I took for half a year. And oh my gosh, that was really the beginning of healing for me. I truly felt for the first time really safe to be myself and supported and nourished by these amazing women and one man. But like, it was just that sort of environment that I really feel like I wish everyone could have this experience. I really think there's so much power to community for us. And I did a couple other crazy stories, like my first pelvic exam, I did it on somebody else because I was still a virgin, and they volunteered and they're like, sure, you can look at my cervix because that's empowering. So I did my first exam on someone else in a shady college dorm room. And afterwards she had said, wow, that was really the gentlest exam I've ever had. And I think you're going to make a fantastic gynecologist in the future. So it's really all those little seeds that were planted along the way. And then when I was trying to decide after I graduated from medical school what field to go into, one of my best friends suddenly called me and said, "Oh my gosh, I just found out I'm 22 weeks pregnant." And and she was the most responsible person I knew, and she was going to have difficulty accessing care. And so talking her through that was so gratifying for me. And so I really just felt that the universe or God was calling me to do this. Then in my gynecology years, I delivered babies, but I really it didn't quite feel like a fit for what I was truly passionate about, because I'm really about that soul healing more so than the technicalities of medicine. And also the high risk, I learned things about myself, that I'm highly sensitive and I'm empathic to other people's pain. So seeing any kind of bad outcomes in the hospital room, I really carried that with me. And I didn't think that I could live with myself if anything bad happened, had I continued on that path to any one of my patients. I cared about them all. So one day I just found myself at such a low point that I decided, hey, I'll go skydiving. I've got nothing to lose anyway. At least the bright side, if anything happens, is I don't have to go back to the life I was living. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to do something to change my life. I was just playing a victim for so long. I really felt just out of control of my life. So it really turned around. Skydiving, that was in 2016. And I started making plans to move myself towards the life that I wanted. I knew and consciously finished my training. I changed to family medicine, primary care, so I could focus more on that preventative health for women. I knew traditional medicine's not my path, and that's okay. I can mold it and use my background, and it's an important part of my journey. And I'm really so grateful for everything that I went through to get to where I am now. So now I follow all of my passions. I honor all parts of myself. I really try to help women in various ways. I think there's many different healing modalities out there. I personally love Zumba classes, so I've led a few people in choreographing and just doing these body movements. I do some telemedicine health only in the areas that really align with me. Usually in the sex education, and I worked at a student clinic as well, and that was really gratifying for me. And I do all these cartoons to just spread awareness and help people just hopefully open their eyes to new perspectives, or to help them remember information in a more fun way. So I just love advocating for women's reproductive rights, women's equality. I could never get enough of that. So I really love where I am now, and I really want that for as many people as possible. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing various ways through one-on-one working and through group working, and with creating all sorts of different videos or workbooks and everything, just to help people really find out who they really are, live true to their hearts, and really love all parts of themselves. And really to include everyone, because I really do believe that we're one. I was raised atheist, but I just became spiritual on my own. I really do feel connected. Some piece of my soul is in every other person I've ever encountered, or animal, or even inanimate object. And I just have so much love and respect for everything and everyone. And that's just what I'm working towards now. Oh, and these other experiences, as I mentioned, I'm an empath, and I've worked, I haven't even tried counting them up, tens of thousands of hours with women in having these really intimate, candid, difficult, and deep conversations with them. And I feel so honored that I could create that safe space for them, and that I could probably was the only person in their life at the time that they felt like they could be truly honest in themselves with, and be truly seen and heard. And I feel like my personal struggles in overcoming my difficulties also helped me to better understand and help other people who were in where I was just a few years ago too, whether they're suffering from their heavy family expectations. My family called me all sorts of horrible things, and they still do, but it's okay because I don't need self validation from anyone other than myself. And there's someone for everyone. I am not for everyone, and not everyone's for me. But I do believe that we can find our community as long as we keep putting ourselves out there and aren't afraid to be our true selves. And yes, if my dream for the future, I know it's lofty, but I'd love to just have so many resources for women all around the world, women's shelters, resources for tampons and pads, because it's heartbreaking that girls are missing school because of their menstrual periods. And then having this sex education course that I'm hoping that I can make into just these videos that I can just distribute to everyone, and even setting up some health clinics globally for just people who need help. My real goal is I believe that when children are born as unplanned or unwanted, then they suffer. They really suffer from the parents who are struggling or unprepared to have them. And I truly believe everyone's deserving of a loving home. And so if one day we can get rid of those pregnancies, and we'll just have a world with so much more love in it. Okay, so let's go into these myths. So I guess I picked out the top 3 for each of these areas. These are from my experiences. I didn't look at statistics. For love, though, I do think that there's a lot that Disney movies or the media throw out there that actually isn't, when you examine them, all that healthy. I think a lot of people, especially women, are pressured into partnering up because they feel that somehow they're not enough if they're single. They're not enough if being single is less than being coupled. And that really messes with people's self-worth, and it's just not a great message, I don't think, to spread. So I really think one of the myths is that. Another one is just that it should just be easy. Love will just happen totally naturally. It doesn't require any effort. And I think that can lead to people giving up on relationships prematurely, or having really unrealistic expectations, and then leading to some dysfunction in the relationships. And then the third one that I really noticed from my years of studying this and in the field experiencing it too, is that we have this unrealistic expectation that partner, we seek for completion a lot of the times. For example, if we didn't have some needs met by our parents growing up, we subconsciously seek a partner to complete us in that way, or to give us what we have never had. And for some people, it does work out. They can really meet each other's needs perfectly. But that also is really, really hard on both partners. I believe that it's healthier if we learn to self-soothe and meet some of our own needs first, so that we can enjoy a partner as a partner. A partner can never be the parent that we never had. And these are the sayings of "you're my other half" is implying that we're not whole and complete and perfect and worthy already as we are. Because I really believe healthy relationships are two whole people, or two or more whole people, coming together and creating something that's more than the sum of their parts. So 1 + 1 is 11, not just 2. Oh, and especially for certain cultures, such as Asian cultures, you could have well-meaning parents who are overprotective, and when you're studying or in school and trying to get to a job, they just say, no distractions, no dating at all. And then as soon as you graduate, they're like, why are you not married yet? So I love doing cartoons to just point out different things as satire, or just in a funny way so that it's memorable. Some top 3 myths about sex. Well, the biggest one I'm here to debunk is that sex is in any way bad or dirty or shameful. Sex is very natural. It's even healthy. I could send you an article with all the great health benefits that having sex regularly does for you and your body. Boosts your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health. Another myth is that sex is only for reproduction. That's kind of what we're being hammered with, especially for women. Men seem to have an easier time to say, oh, okay, it's all right. Or we're so focused on male pleasure. It's always about the male orgasm, and there isn't as much attention or emphasis given for the female orgasm. And yes, females can orgasm. That was another thing that many people I've met did not know either. So, and the third is that there's any right or wrong way to approach sex, because what sex means to each person, each individual, is so different. And every view of sex is valid. So some people don't need it at all in their lives, and some are very much into it. It's all good. It's really just about accepting everyone's views as valid because it's their personal experience and personal practice. And then going along with the right or wrong way, a lot of times there are these performative expectations where people think that they have to put on a certain act to please their partner, or they're focused so much on their partner's pleasure that they forget that it's about them too. So, or it's about like jumping to the orgasm, or it's very goal oriented rather than just enjoying the entire journey with mutual exploration along the way. So we got some myths in anatomy too. I love this one. The clitoris is so big. In traditional, I mean, what you can see from the outside, it just looks like a little circular nub, or they call it like the pea of a flower or something, and that it's mythical and hard to find, but actually it's huge. Look at it. In the diagram, you can see that that's the vaginal opening and the vulva, and the clitoris is just right underneath the skin, and it's got at least twice as many nerve endings as the penis, yet it has less than, I don't know, 100 times less attention given to it. It's not talked about. Many people don't even know it exists. So please pass on this information to everyone you know. Another interesting myth about anatomy is that I've seen so many women do a lot of extensive cleaning of the vagina, even with products or soap products for douching that they put inside. That actually leads to more vaginal infections a lot of the time, such as yeast and bacterial vaginosis. There's really no need. I tell patients, it's the same as your ears. It's a self-cleaning instrument. You don't need to do anything. It is perfect. And again, I think that goes back to those shaming messages that women have. They feel like they have to get rid of all the hair on our bodies because that's not beautiful, or do this or do that, and like make your vagina smell like perfume. I don't know. So, and then another big one is that I should be able to orgasm from intercourse, penis and vagina intercourse, for example, by itself. And that's really such a small percentage of women. Only about a third of them actually can. Many of us, the clitoris is our pleasure center, and we need some kind of pressure there, not just vaginal stimulation in order to reach orgasm. So I meet many women who feel like, oh, I really feel like there's something wrong with me since I can't, or I've never had an orgasm. And I'm just like, no, honey. Yes, you can, and you deserve to. You deserve more attention. Some myths about pregnancy. So I hear this from patients. I ask, so what birth control are you using? They're like, oh, we just time it and we pull out. And I'm just like, that's really risky. Pulling out only works about 75% of the time. And it's because that some semen does exist in the pre-ejaculate fluid, or pre-cum as they call it. So it's really not, and it's hard to time that as well. Another myth that's floating around out there is that somehow 2 condoms are better than 1. Sounds good in theory, but actually doing the double bagging puts the usually latex on latex friction, and it can actually make it more likely to rip or break, and defeating the purpose. So don't do that. Never double or triple bag. Another one is just feeling like, oh, the sperm, I can just wash it out afterwards. No, it can travel very quickly up through into the uterus. And also it's hard to wash it all out, and the sperm can actually stay alive in a female body, or in a body, for 7 days because of the temperature. They're pretty robust little swimmers, eh? And then the morning after pill is my only choice. A lot of people think that there's just a pill for after sex, but there's actually an IUD, which is an intrauterine device that also works as long-term birth control for up to 12 years if they wanted to see a doctor from after having unprotected sex. Then they can still have that put in and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And now for some top myths about STIs, formerly STDs. Now I love that there is destigmatization destigmatization of it, because it used to be called diseases. Now it's infections, which is just a more neutral term. So a big myth is that all STIs can be tested for and they can be cured. No, there are some that really stick with you for life, and they can flare up, such as herpes or HIV. It just affects your immune system for the rest of your life. But it's great that we do have medicines to help suppress that. And another one people don't know is that you can't test for HPV, which is human papillomavirus, which I'll go into more on the next slide. Another one is that STIs are all equally bad. No, they have different severities. I would say HPV is actually one of those really like benign ones, or harmless ones. They can give you some warts. They can increase your risk of cancer, certain types, but this is a statistic in North America, 1/4 of people, young people, sexually active people at any time, carry the HPV virus. So everyone probably has it at some point in their lives, but a lot of times your body's immune system just naturally clears it, like most viruses, and then you're fine, for that strain at least. So, and the third one is, right, as I mentioned, that there's such a stigma to having STIs. A person, it's sometimes things happen, they try to use protection, things break, or they get cheated on by a long-term partner. I'm also on a mission to just separate the disease from the person, or the infection from the person, and just to help people get the care that they need. And HPV, as I mentioned, just a little bit more about it. It's a virus, it's very common, mostly harmless, asymptomatic or silent, meaning most people really don't know that they have it unless you have a rare strain that gives you one of the symptoms. It's different from herpes. And then 25% of Americans have an active infection. And the few that we do worry about are types 16 and 18. They're high risk for giving cancer in the cervix for women, and cancer of the throat and mouth and anus for men. So now, though, we've developed a vaccine for HPV that we can give to people as young as 12 years old, or 11 years old, excuse me. And it is great for preventing cancer. It's over 90% effective, but a lot of times I've met parents who are really uncomfortable consenting to it or talking about it with their children. They keep thinking it's the sex vaccine, or if I do this for my child, they're gonna feel like it's more okay to go out and have sex. No, just let them know what's properly educate them. It's for cancer, because that's really what this vaccine is. And the best time to give it is well before they start being sexually active at all. And a bonus, if they're less than 15 years old, they only need 2 shots in the series rather than all 3. Now for some myths about Pap smears. So Paps, people have asked me, I don't need it, right? I'm 25, I'm 30, I've never been sexually active. And I'm like, no, actually, because just as never smoker, people who never smoked can get lung cancer, your cervix can just get cancer on its own too. Being sexually active, if you do get HPV, can increase your chances of developing cancer. The cervix is the opening to the uterus, by the way. But it's still something that's just good practice too. We recommend that starting age 21, you just go to a doctor. We do this Pap test for you. It can be a little uncomfortable if you've never even used a tampon before, but we can find ways. We can use a very, very small tool and just get a small swab of the cells we need. And you only need to do it every 3 to 5 years. So it's really important, because cervical cancer is one of the few cancers that we can actually do something about, because it's slow growing enough that we can catch it before it goes into something very bad later. Oh, and this HPV bazooka analogy is just saying that it adds fuel to the fire for cervical cancer, going back to this picture too. And then, as I said before, virgins can't or shouldn't get Paps. That's not true. Talk to your gynecologist or your doctor. We can find a way. And finally, in the area of self-exams, some myths here. There have been a lot of back and forth about breast exams. The most recent guidelines, we were saying that the self-exam really does a lot more harm than good, because it leads to pursuing of many false findings or little lumps, and oftentimes unnecessary worrying. But I'm still of the opinion, this is a mixed one, that it's okay if you would like to take an active role in your health, to just check your breasts once a month, much as men would check their scrotum once a month for any lumps that could signal testicular cancer. So, but usually the protocol is, if you don't have any risk factors in your family history, that we just start doing mammograms for you at age 40. All right, well, thanks so much. I will pause here because we're going to get into our group discussion. So I'm going to pause recording.